It has been a tough 24 hours for the United Kingdom. It started with the warmest night on record, and then during the day it recorded an all-time high temperature of 40 degrees Celsius. And now, wildfires. Firefighters worked overnight to damp down wildfires in East London. Around 100 firefighters tackled a blaze which began in grassland before spreading to nearby homes. Major incidents were also declared by fire services in Leicestershire, Yorkshire, Suffolk and Norfolk. The London Fire Brigade endured its busiest day since World War II. At least 16 firefighters were injured around the capital, with 2 taken to the hospital.
We are incredibly worried that the Fire Brigade's response isn't what it should be, what it wants to be. On a normal day, the London Fire Brigade expects the first fire engine to reach a fire within 6 minutes. On average now, it's taken more than 20 minutes for a first fire engine to reach a fire. That shows the pressure the fire brigade is under. This consequence of climate change, this excessive heat approaching 40 degrees and exceeding it. These sort of fires we're seeing today could become the norm rather than the exception.
Reports show that cooler weather has now returned to certain parts of the UK, but the people are still reeling from the aftermath.
Mine's spinning, to be honest. I just keep thinking about how worse it could have been, you know. I mean, we've lost everything, but we've all still got our lives. I think everyone got out safely. All our neighbours got out safely. I think that's the main thing, you know.
We opened up the local church and we got everyone in there, didn't we? People with their dogs and that, and it was a bit of a sanctuary for a little, everyone having a drink and washing their faces. Everyone was covered in soot and stuff. And then within about 10 minutes, the place was full of smoke. They went up the church tower and looked around, and it was engulfed the church.
The sweltering weather coupled with wildfires has disrupted travel, healthcare and schools. Many homes, small businesses and even public buildings in Britain don't have air conditioning, which is a reflection of how unusual such heat is in the country. Britain's government has defended its record on environment, touting its decision to move to a net zero status. But ministers have admitted it will take years to upgrade its infrastructure to cope with the heat. Experts say if greenhouse gas emissions are not reduced, Britain could see similar heat waves every 3 years. Our correspondent Ollie Barrett has been tracking this story closely. He gets us the latest from London. Take a look.
Yeah, there are no fires raging around London anymore. That's partly because there's been a significant drop in temperature from yesterday of around 10 degrees at least, if not more. But we've also had rain overnight as well, and there's more rain forecast for today. So no fires currently raging around the London area. In fact, up and down the country, all of the blazes that were going yesterday on Tuesday appear now to be either out or under control. As I say, that's partly due to temperatures dropping significantly since that peak. There's a lot of knock-on effects from the travel disruption that we saw yesterday. That takes some time to work through the system. So there are lots of train lines today that are either disrupted or simply not running services. The routes between London and Scotland, for example, still seeing major disruption. And we are likely to see that disruption continue for a little while yet. And some of it does come down to the basic infrastructure simply not being built for temperatures like we saw on Monday and Tuesday. Rail lines, for example, that simply weren't tested and weren't designed for temperatures over 40 degrees centigrade. We're talking about overhead lines for some routes that were too dangerous to be in use in those temperatures as well. So there is a lot of consideration that the government will now need to put in place for the future about how to deal with some of these effects on an ongoing basis, but actually at the same time quite a lot of criticism for the UK government for not having put more preparation in place already for incidences like these. Now, in the past, successive governments have said that heat waves like this are a rare event and that you can't therefore spend huge amounts of money for things that don't come along very often. Well, as I say, critics of the government will now say that they have been warning for some time that events like this will come along more frequently and therefore that the UK does need to be better prepared for them looking ahead to the coming years.
And for more updates, we're now being joined by Louis Torrent from Barcelona. He is an international consultant on climate change. Louis, welcome to WION's Climate Tracker. We've, of course, been discussing the immediate impact of climate change with you over the last few weeks. What can you tell us about the recent wildfires across Britain and Europe? How are the containment efforts proceeding?
Well, as you have been reported, wildfires continue to struggle across Europe. In Spain, Portugal, Italy and Greece, people have been really suffering. Some people have lost their lives, some people have lost their homes. So only in Spain this year alone, there have been 60,000 hectares of burned fields. This is equivalent of more than half the size of London, for you to have an idea. But as expressed in the previous interview, this is an episode that is rare, but it will be increasing in frequency and in intensity in the coming years.
Right. Now, extreme weather events are certainly a wake-up call, especially for Britain, where the infrastructure is unable to cope with such high temperatures. But the big question is, why wasn't Britain prepared to handle such events, especially when the effects of climate change have been visible over the last few years?
Of course, the effects of climate change have been visible, but I still believe that some people are not truly aware of the magnitude of the effects of climate change. And I think we are now realizing that this is an effect, a phenomenon, that it's here to stay. The UK never reached 40 degrees in the past, only just yesterday in Heathrow Airport. So this means the infrastructure is not well prepared for such a situation, such an event. Updating the infrastructure to climate change conditions, the new climate change conditions, does not happen overnight. It takes years of planning. And this is why the scientific community has been raising the voice and the alarm and expressing for the last 2 decades at least that increased efforts must be undertaken to better adapt to climate change, which is really happening now, and it will increase in intensity in the coming years.
Right, Louis, thank you so much for all those insights. Thanks for joining us on WION World is One at this hour.
Thank you very much.
WION World is One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.